It's just a way of, it's built into your system, and it's curl is using another way of connecting to, it's still responding with a request, but I would say curl is even lower level than fetch. Yeah. So would I use curl? Probably not. Yes. Yeah. We don't want to use curl unless you have to, unless you absolutely have to. I probably wouldn't do that at this point. And there's other better ways of doing it. And now there's sometimes, I have to also say, there's sometimes that there are no better ways, because you know what, you're doing it on the command line or something like that, and you're trying to access an API or download something through curl. Like for example, I'm installing Homebrew on a Mac. I'm going to do it through curl, right? But if I'm doing something with I'm going to use it on the web somewhere, on a web page or whatever, yeah, I'm never going to use curl. That's just me. I wouldn't do it, right? So that's just, you know, everyone's different. And, you know, I think there's always, and this is, people always ask me this question, like, why do these other ways exist? And my answer always is this: everything that's been created has been created at some point, if it's successful, to solve a problem. And my question to you back would be, what problem is curl solving at this point in our development? And the answer is probably nothing that fetch can't do, or that Axios can't do, as an example, right? Unless it's on the command line. And then I probably wouldn't use anything but curl, right? Okay. So here's our demo. We'll say the demo part, which is also a video. So again, I'm always going to put all these videos up. They're always up. People have asked this last time. They're like, where's the video from this week? Remember that if you go to Blackboard, they're always there every single time in the content area. You can always watch the videos if you miss something. Back to this. Welcome back. We are COMP2112 in the fall 2022 semester at Georgian, and it's week 10, part 2 of our broadcast and recording. And where we last left off, we just finished talking about the Fetch API and Axios. And now I want to get into the next portion, which is us trying to do a little bit of CRUD. That's create, read, update, and delete with our, the stuff here in React. Okay, let's see how we can do this. Can we pull it off today? Maybe we won't be able to do it, but we'll try. How about that? First things first. Okay, so let's see how far we can get, is what I'm saying. So one thing is, remember, I was working, and you guys were working from home last week, and some of you are here with me today. But last week, we kind of were on GitHub, and we went to, I put all my stuff always up on GitHub for you guys. So there it is, COMP2112 from week 9. So just like before, I'm not at home anymore, and I have to get the same project, and I want to clone this project locally. So just like we've done in the past, I'm just going to go here to the desktop. One sec. I'm just doing this off screen for a second. Here's our desktop, and here's week 8, and I want to clone it in here. And just like what I've done before is, I'm just going to go to my command prompt here. And again, you can do this on a Mac or Windows machine. It doesn't matter. It'd be very similar to this, right, on a Mac. And I want to do something like, I want to get this folder, right? And I want to clone in here. So I'm going to say something like git clone, https://github.com, and then /Georgian College. Now this would be where you put in your account name, and then you have the COMP2112 in the fall 2022 semester, and it's week 9. That was last week, right? So if I did everything properly, then it's going to grab everything and put it in. So what that does is it takes my old project and it kind of teleports it in here, right? Here's week 9. And of course, now that I have this, I can rename it locally. I can make it week 9. And we don't want to make it week 9. We want to make it week 10. So I'm just going to copy paste from this one. That's last week's stuff. And here's week 10. So here's my week 10. And I'm going to take this now and put it inside of Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to go into VS Code. And I'm going to drag and drop from week 10 in here, right? Now, by the way, things to think about when we're doing this kind of work. Visual Studio Code updated last week on my system. I didn't use this last week with you guys, right? So Visual Studio Code might need to update here on this thing. And I recommend always keeping Visual Studio Code updated especially when it comes to things like your the latest version of your all the extensions and those kind of things. Also, notice here it says it's downloading updates. So whenever you have this, if you're working on your laptop today because you're with me here, or if you're working on another computer, make sure you download and install the updates. It's important because things continue to change with Visual Studio Code and with the web. It's very, very important. Okay, so I'm going to wait a second, and I'm going to take any questions you might have in terms of any issues. Oh, one thing is that Sarah had asked if I was to share my extensions with you guys. I'm not sure if you saw that note on Discord. I actually shared my extensions with you guys for Visual Studio Code. If you wanted your stuff to look like my stuff, I'm just going to restart and update. Because some people are like, I don't know why, but my Visual Studio Code doesn't look like yours. Yes, you're right, because I have extensions installed that may not, do what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to be huge differences between my stuff and your stuff. It's just slight differences. Okay, so we don't need this anymore. So I'm just going to X out of this. And again, all I want to do is make this thing work. That's the first thing. And I want to repoint my project to a brand new repository for this week. Okay, and I have a couple of additional extensions here that probably need a reload. Okay, so we'll do that now. Go. Hopefully that's going to be okay. There we go. Excellent. No more extensions. Everything is up to date, and I'm ready to go now at this point. But what I need to do, oh, this is neat. I like that. That's neat. They have that little search bar. What I want to do now is I want to change my, I want to repoint my project to a new repository, like we always do, right? So back up here, I want to make a brand new repository for today. So let's make a brand new one. So we're going to say this is going to be called COMP2112 in the fall 2022 semester, and it's going to be week 10. There we go. I'm going to make it public like before and press enter. This is going to give me steering instructions. Let's go down a little bit. It's going to give me steering instructions on how to change my repository so it points to a new location, right? Now, again, I've done this many times now at this point, so you should know how to do it. So what I want to do here is, if I look at my project, I want to use Control backtick and go into my command prompt that's built into Visual Studio Code. And I want to do git remote remove origin. Actually, let's do git remote -v. It tells us that the origin remote is pointing to week 9. I don't want it to point to week 9. I want it to point to my new project repository. So I'm going to say git remote remove origin. And this is the name of the remote. Remember, origin remote. I'm just going to remove it because we want to repoint our project to something else. So we're going to just say something like, we'll do that, those lines of code that we were given here on GitHub. So I'm just going to grab these 3 lines of code and right click and enter, and that should point everything now to my new project. So for this week, I'm using this repository right here. Now it says week 9. I need to change this because that was from last week. Let's change it up. So down here inside of we have some changes to make to bring us up to speed. One is, in our tsconfig.json, it should say somewhere, sorry, not ts, I mean my package.json, it should say week 10. That's what it should say. And then we're not going to change my tsconfig anything. It should say week 10. It should also point to the week 10 repository here for Git. So I'm making changes here so we can say that this is actually version 0.3 of our project because it's the 3rd version of our React. So I've changed that. Okay. So save that, number 1. Next, I want to change my README file. So my README file says week 10, because that's something we can do. So week 10, there we go, save. And now we want to put this up on GitHub as added project files to week 10, something like that. Okay, so again, I'm just going to close all these down and open this up. And I'll say git add dot, git commit -m. So I'm making a new snapshot from my code. I'm going to say added project files to week 10 repo. And then git push. And that's going to push everything else up to week 10. Awesome. And now what I want to do is I want to do a yarn install. Whenever we start off a brand new thing again, and I copy my project around, we don't have any node modules. I need to install them again. So I'm going to do a yarn install and install all the node modules that I had from last week. It's going to take some time, and bear with it while it does. Because that's important to do. So we need to prepare. We need to prepare for this stuff that we're doing. I want to have some kind of data, right? Remember, we want some kind of data that we want to have access to. And, the data that we want to have access to is something that's local for now before we connect to our backend. So today, what I'd like to do is at least read from using using Axios. Let's see if we can read from our API using Axios. Right now, I'm just installing all of my stuff. It's going to take some time, and it really depends on your system and your speed. And remember what I'm going to do next? What am I going to do next after I've downloaded all these things? The next part, the exact next thing I do. What's the next thing I do? I've downloaded everything. I've made my new project. What's next? What's the next step? I did that already, but what am I going to do next after this? I've got my git commit and I've downloaded my project. What's the next step before I do anything else? The what? I did the yarn install. I did that. What's next after the what? Start. I want to test my project because I don't even know if it's going to work anymore, right? This is another super important step, because if I don't test my project, we make assumptions that everything is working. And if I start changing my project now, it might break. I don't know. Maybe something else happened, right? So let's do it. Let's do a yarn start. Always check it out to make sure that it works. Yarn start. And this is going to create a small little server here on the client side that's going to enable everything to work just peachy. And one day when it feels like doing stuff, we'll be okay. All right, so this is what we had last time. We had this. Welcome to our site, Rich Freeman. You're probably mad at me because I did that. No, he's probably not mad. He's probably laughing at me. All right, so let's change this up. Let's make it so it's not Rich Freeman. We'll use another name today. And I'm just going to pick a random person off of the top of the participants panel here. It's going to be Alex Taylor. We're going to say, welcome, Alex Taylor, so they don't get mad. Okay, Alex? Okay. Let's see if we can actually do this and do it properly. So where would we change that? Again, if you remember in the source files here, if I go to views, I have my content views, and inside my content views, I have home. And we just mocked up what it'd be like if we had a user object, which is right here. This is our user object. And basically we said that whatever the user object is, it's going to pass into the props display name in here. Okay, that's what we said. So we got that from the app.tsx file last week, where we said, well, here inside the router, we passed in the username is R Freeman and the display name is Rich Freeman. This time we'll do another one to see that's different. So we'll say A Taylor. Let's suppose that was our user, right? And by the way, you can use your own name if you like, if you feel more comfortable doing that. So we'll say Alex Taylor here. Alex is a good sport. He's not complaining. Thank you, Alex. I just took the first name on my list here. Okay. Next time you're Hamid, you're next. All right. And then once I've done this, right, then we should see the changes come up here, right, where it says Alex Taylor instead of Rich. That's how simple it was, right? We passed it in as a as properties, and it comes in here, right? Wonderful. Okay, so that's it. We also talked about a couple things, just to review from last week. We talked about a couple things. We changed some stuff, right? We changed in our components. We went into our header and we changed our anchor tags to nav links. And we did this. Why did we do this? Why did I bother changing everything to nav links? I talked about it last week briefly, but I want to see if you guys remember. Yes. Yeah. So the answer is yes. We want to make it so that the links glow or they light up. I like calling them light up. It just shows your active link. That's what I wanted to do. And we use the active link inside of our browser. So for example, if I click on home, it lights up. It looks, that's one of the reasons. But here's the real reason why I wanted to use this last week, right? Because navlink, it uses React Router DOM, which creates this effect that we want, which is a single page application. If I use anchor tags, it's still an HTML page. It means it's going to reload the page every single time. I don't want to reload the page with href requests. I want to use navlink so that it just loads the new content without reloading the page, which makes it faster. Okay. On that, I did the same thing here in my homepage. In my homepage, I said, hey, look, instead of using an anchor tag here for the button, I'm going to use a link, which is also from React Router DOM. Links and nav links are the exact same. A nav link is inside of a navigation bar, and links are just anywhere you want to put them. And links, again, do not refresh the page. They're used so that way we can quickly load the content using our single page application type of framework. Okay, so that's what we did last week. We also talked about two hooks last week. We talked about useEffect, which runs every time this module or this component is loaded, it runs at least one time, okay? We also had said that useEffect also uses something called a dependency list right here, which we haven't really gone into so far, okay? That's why we use these square brackets. Square brackets indicate it's a list of dependencies that we're using the observer pattern here to listen to in order for us to rerun this effect. So useEffect is going to trigger one time right now. Well, we can make it trigger every single time something else happens if we want to, okay? We also talked about it as a second hook. We made a contact page, a very simple contact page here, where we said, let's use state. And use state, we made it work with all the elements in our on our contact form. That's what we did here. And so what we did is we actually outputted our elements when we did on change full name and all that stuff. We outputted our elements to the console when we're done, when we're submitting the form. So this is using a reactive type of framework. And we're also using injection. Look at this. This is the injection in JSX in order for us to inject our data here. Okay, so that's what we did last time. This time, we need some data. Okay, we need some data. And we want to be able to display our data in the page. So for now, what I want to do is I want to make a folder, right, that is going to be used for our data. So I'm going to go right out to the root of our project, right? And then inside of the SRC folder, I'm going to make a brand new folder called the data folder. So brand new folder, we're going to call this data. And inside of our data folder, I want a new JSON file, okay? Let's make a JSON file in here. So let's do that, new file. And I want to call this, let's do our favorite TV shows. We'll do our favorite TV shows today, okay? So we'll say TV shows.json. TV shows.json, okay? Now remember how JSON files work. JSON files either take a object, okay, starting off, or they can instantly take an array like this, okay? That's also what they can do. They can take an array. If we make it so that they take an object first, then we have to name our array. For example, something like TV shows, right? Here's our TV shows array. And then inside of our array, we would put in objects that are TV shows. For example, maybe the TV show would have a title, right? And maybe the title for the first TV show is going to be, I don't know, House of the Dragon, kind of a kind of one that was kind of out recently. And let's make title so that's lowercase t, so it's titled lowercase t. And let's also add another property for our TV show, which is the studio. That's it. Okay, so 2 properties. And let's say the studio is HBO. Okay, so that is our first object here, right, for the TV shows. And if I hover over TV shows, it doesn't really give us information, right? It just says that TV shows is the name of the array. Okay, but then how do I access this data? What if I had 10 more TV shows? I'd have to go through tvshows.json.tv shows. I don't want to do that, right? So another way to avoid this is not even have a curly brace or an object on the outside. We can just have an array. That's also possible with JSON. Where we have an array, that's what it's going to return, an array of TV show objects, right? Like this is another way to write it, right? So let's make a couple more TV shows here. This is our data that we're hoping to get, okay? And let's see if we can do that. And I'm just going to change a few TV shows. So I know there's some other popular TV shows out here. Like, for example, Andor is a really good, I'm a science fiction fantasy fan, so please forgive me. I'm going to give you all the fantasy and sci-fi TV shows that are out there that are popular right now. That's on Disney, right? And we have another one that was out there, which was Lord of the Rings. I'm just going to use the short name, Lord of the Rings, which was actually up on Prime Video, right? Right, so Prime Video was Lord of the Rings. And let's use another TV show that's out right now, which is The Peripheral. I think it's spelled peripheral. God, I can't even spell peripheral because I'm trying to multitask. With a PH, I'll be okay. Yes. The Peripheral, also on Prime. And we also have some other TV shows like Severance. That was not a bad, recently made. And that was on Apple. And anyone want to give me another TV show that we can put up there? Apple TV Plus. Right? Any other studios? Any other things? Do you like a popular show? Breaking Bad, that's an old one. Okay. That's on HBO, right? So Breaking Bad. Okay, HBO. And anyone else? Maybe another one? A couple more? And I'll put this list on the chat for you guys, for those people, instead of you having to recreate it yourself. How about some other people over here? Any other popular TV shows you like? How about Elena? Do you have any popular TV shows you watch? She's like, no, I don't watch any TV. Okay, how about some people online? How about Kyle or Sarah or Hamid, or anybody else? Lost, okay, I like Lost. That's an old TV show. Now, what network was that on? And Yellowstone. Yellowstone was on Prime, isn't it? Yeah. So, but what's Lost? When was Lost made? I can't remember who made Lost. I think that was on CBS or something like that. Let's check it out. Who made Lost? Lost. Hold on a second. Lost TV show studio. Is it on ABC? Yeah, it is. ABC Studios. Touchstone Television with Bad Robot Productions, right? So that is ABC Studios, right? And we also have some other suggestions I'm going to put up here just because we want some data. Okay, that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing it because I want anything else. So Yellowstone, that is also another one up here. So we'll say Yellowstone is, that's on Prime Video, right? And we have one more suggestion, which is, The Walking Dead. That's AMC, sure. The Walking Dead. AMC, right? And sorry, did I miss one? The Good Fight, Sarah. What was that on? I'll do that one. This is the last one. The Good Fight. CBS. Okay. Good Fight. CBS. There we go. All right, good. So those are all the CBS probably studios. Okay, so that is all of them. I think that is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, good. Excellent. That's good enough. This is the list. I'm going to take this and put it inside of the chat here. And that's all the stuff we just talked about. So if you wanted to get that list, I'm also going to put this up on GitHub. So we're going to do something like this, control backtick. And I'm going to go into a brand new terminal. Git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added mock data. Git push. So mock data means it's not real. It's just locally. We're going to test our stuff because we don't have a backend yet. All right, so there's our TV shows.json, and we want to have access to it, right? So we want to use some kind of service to get that done. We want to be able to access our TV shows. And what I want to think about is how to do this. So it's like I have more content. So this is the first part. The first part is I want to set up my views so I can think about where this content is going to come in. Remember, I have the view first. And then after the view, I want to think about the code that's going to connect to the view, code behind file. Okay. So how would I do that? So first, let's make another section inside views. We'll make a new one, and we'll call this section something like TV show list or TV list, something like that. Okay. So new, we want a new folder inside of views, and we'll call it something like TV show or TV shows.list. Dash list. How about dash list? Like that. TV shows dash list. Perfect. Okay. So that is our views TV shows dash list, kind of location. I'm making it different so that it doesn't have to be what we can make this whatever we want. You can call this whatever you want. Okay. Inside of here, I want to be able to actually do I want to be able to read the TV shows dash list, right? So now let's think of this. What do I want? I want to make, and this is a brand new thing we're doing. I want to make a brand new component that's going to display my TV shows list. That's what I want to make. Brand new component to display the list. So therefore, I want to call it TV shows dash list, right? So a new file, we're going to make a new file called TV shows dash list.tsx. We need a couple of things here for this thing, right? Remember what we need? We need to have a couple of things, right? The first thing is we need to import React, right? From React. That's the first thing we need. So we can't do anything without React. Next, I want to make a new function. I want to call it TV shows list. Like this. And I want to export default TV shows list. This one. So that is the structure I need to start off with. This starts off my component, remember? Because I want to make this brand new thing that's going to display my thing, my TV show. Okay. Very nice. Very, very nice. Now, it would be nice if we had a structure for our TV shows. Before we go further, wouldn't it be nice if we could structure our TV shows and so we know what they look like? We're going to need this if we're going to pass a TV show around, right? So just like we did last week, I'm going to go into models and I want to make a brand new model for the TV show, right? So it's going to represent one TV show. What does that look like? Okay. So that's the first thing I want to do. So back to this in my model, right? And I want to think about what this TV show is going to have, right? So again, I'm going to right click and I'm going to make a new file, right? And it's going to be called TV show. Like this, .ts, TypeScript. My TV show is going to be structuring what this thing is going to look like. And we're going to do it all in one line. In our user last time, we did this, right? And someone had asked me last week, can't we do this all in one line? Remember you guys asked me that, right? Yes, you can. And it looks something like this. Ready? Export default, right? And I can call it an interface, which I'm going to call TV show, right? That's what I'm going to call it. Now I could call this TV show data. I can call it iTV show, where I stands for interface. You can call it a lot of things here. I'm just going to call it TV show. And for now, my TV show is going to have the following things. What should it have? That's it. A title and a studio is all I care about, right? I don't care about anything else, just those two things. So a title, right, which is of type string, right? And it's also going to have, what else? A studio, which is of type string. Those are the two things it needs. Okay. Notice how I did it. I used this with commas. What if I tried to do it like this? Would it work? Is this okay too? And the answer is yes. Both work fine, right? So this is good. So now that I have a TV show, right? This is everything that I'm loading, every piece of data that I'm loading from my TV shows.json, my TV shows.json is going to be structured like a TV show, title and studio. Make sense? So we have our data and we create our model that matches our data in this case. First, we have our data. Now, everyone is different here. And if you talk to somebody else, some of our other friends of ours, for example, if you talk to someone like Jarrett, if you ever have Jarrett for anything, or sometimes even Rich might say this too, or other people, they might say, no. First do the model, then do the data, right? For me, I'm a data first person. So I usually do the data first. I did my TV shows, and then I create the model from our data. Because the model is going to describe the data, right? The model is just a interface that's going to say, this is what our data is looking like. That's all it is, okay? Some people call it a class. And if we're going to make this, if you're going to use a model class in your .NET, it would be a class, correct? You have models in .NET? Same thing, right? Nothing different here. Wonderful. So now that I have a model, I've just described this thing. Nice. Then I go back to my TV show component that I'm making. And then we can think about, okay, so now that I have that, right, maybe I'm going to need some kind of state to keep track of my TV show that's here, right? In fact, I may want to use state to keep track of my, like to get an array of TV shows. That's what I want, okay? An array of TV shows. And how do I do something like that? How do I get an array of TV shows in here? I don't have an array of TV shows yet, okay? But we're going to have that for sure. So here and here, we're going to say that underneath my TV shows object, I'm going to use const. I'm going to create a new pair. I'm going to call it TV show. There's my TV show. And I want to, now here's something, TV shows, because we want an array of TV shows. And so we're pluralizing it. And I want to set TV shows. Remember those two things? I'm making a state, and I'm going to use state like this, use state, right? Use state, and use state is going to pass in an array of TV show. That's what I want. Look how beautiful it is, how beautiful TypeScript is, and how beautiful thing is. Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code did the heavy lifting for me, my friends. Look what it did. Immediately, it imported my TV show from .. models TV show. It did this for me. Why? It's basically saying, I don't know what TV show is. I don't know what this is yet. I'm going to go into the models folder, into the TV show file, and I want to use that definition of what a TV show is. Okay, cool. That's what it did here. Now, we also know that you were using state, but we didn't have use state in. I can just click here and say import, update import from React. And now it also includes use state in my import statement here. So what I've done here is I've created another getter and setter for TV shows. This is where it's going to store all the TV shows when I read them, and set TV shows when I'm going to do that too. Okay. Okay. Now, this is wonderful. This is what I want to do, but I need a way of reading my data. Before I output anything, I need a way of reading my data. And now, oh my God, I need to figure out a way to get my data, I need to use the Axios framework like we talked about before. But before I do the Axios framework, I need some kind of service. That's what we're going to make. We're going to create a new service so we can access the data. Oh man, okay, so we have to go and get that done too, right? Now this is a little bit of overhead at the beginning, but please don't panic. All right, because that's the thing that we're going to do. So back to this. So here's our views. We have models, right? And we're just structuring stuff off. So I'm kind of telling you how this works. At the top here, and I'm just going to, kind of go here inside of the SRC folder. I'm going to make a brand new folder in the SRC folder called services, new folder. So my services folder is another group of files that I need so that I can, connect to my data. Okay, that's what I want to make. And I need a new component for this, a brand new component for this altogether. All right. So, how do I do this? Well, I'm going to need, if I make in my services, I need almost like some common, almost like a common HTTP, component that I want in here first. So that's the first thing I'm going to make, a common component that I want to add into all services. Okay, because I might have more than one service in the future, right? So one of them is this common HTTP component that I want in. Okay, I don't have this, so I'm going to call it common HTTP or HTTP common. So brand new. And by the way, when we think about the file that I want this to be, my HTTP common, it's still going to be a TSX file. Okay. This is all set up, guys. Please bear with me. I know it sounds convoluted, but it's a one-time fee, one-time cost, one-time fee. I'm a salesman. HTTP common is what we're going to call it, .tsx. Wonderful. I need to import here. I want to import Axios. I don't have Axios. So this is where I want it to go, right? So remember inside of our package.json, right? Here's our package.json. We need to import Axios now, and that's the next step that we want to go through. Okay, don't get lost yet. We haven't done much. All we made is one little thing, and we haven't done any services yet. We're making it now. Bear with me. I know people are, whenever we do this kind of stuff, they're like, holy crap, look at that. I got to do this and that and the other thing. Yeah, you do. But it's only a one-time cost. And I really mean that. Once you've set this up the first time, then afterwards, it's like a lot easier in some ways. Back to this. So what do I need? I need you to yarn add Axios, right? Yarn add Axios. And you know what? It's probably a good idea if we're going to have anything like Axios, we want to also add at types at the same time /Axios. So Axios is, remember that thing we just talked about. It's going to enable us to do what we need to do. Let's press enter here. So it's going to grab Axios and install it into our package.json file. This is where we're going to actually do it now. Okay. And if it did, right, where it says Axios types, this is a stub type definition for Axios. Well, we don't need it because it already has it. So you don't need Axios. Isn't that wonderful? So that means we can uninstall that. Let's just go back and take it out. So we're going to say something like yarn remove, right? At types Axios, right? Wonderful. One less thing in our packages. That's amazing. I know I'm being really I'm being really super enthusiastic here about Axios because I'm biased, right? I want you guys to use Axios because I like it. But there's, again, please remember, if you talk to another professor and he says, you don't need Axios, you can use Fetch. Okay. You guys can use Fetch next time too, if you want. Wonderful. I've downloaded and installed Axios now, and now I can finally use it in my code, I think. How do I do it? What's the next step? Well, let's close off our package.json, right? And we're going to go back into our HTTP common. This is where we're actually going to enable Axios to work, okay? So, yeah. Yarn add Axios, right? And I added both, and I just, we mentioned here that Tyler says that, hey, by the way, Axios also comes with, its own type definition. We don't need it. It's true. So I removed it. Okay. Well, I only added it because here, I'll go back. So what I did was I did this. I said, yarn add Axios and types, but you don't need to do this because it already has this. You just do this one. And then you don't have to do the remove. All right, wonderful. So let's get into the coding here because I need to code my HTTP common module, right? And the HTTP common module is going to do something that looks like this. I'm going to say import Axios from Axios. So that's the first part. I import it. Oops. What did I do there? Axios. And then I want to export default. And here's a beautiful thing. Axios dot create, right? And I want to create a couple of things here, right? One of them is the base URL, right? That I want to use, something called base URL. This is kind of configuration for Axios for the first time. And what's my base URL, guys? This is the API where I'm going to the base the API that I'm using right now. Where is it? Well, it's here, right? This is what I want, TV shows.json. So let's suppose if I'm going to go to my data, where is my data in my code? Where is it? Or we can just say slash, how about this? Slash, right? And then data, right? Now, if you want to be more specific, it'd be // data / TV shows.json. That is our base URL right now. That's where we're getting our data from, right? Now, we don't have to even go TV shows.json typically, but let's do that. Let's just put TV shows.json. And the other thing we also want to do is talk about headers. So headers, we've talked about, we don't want to be too complex here. So headers, as in, is something we want to put in. And headers is something that we want to put in here as well. And we want to say something like the header for this thing is of type content type. It's a one-time cost again. Content dash type. And then it's going to be of type application JSON. We want that. And I forgot my comma. That's why it's complaining. Right. So that's what headers looks like. Right. And headers typically is a lowercase h. I don't know why it's showing up as an uppercase h. Right. So that is all it's going to do. It's going to create a reference. It's almost like a configuration object. So I don't have to do this every single time. So I don't have to say something like, well, I'm accessing, Axios. And what this is going to do is this going to return a promise. Every single time I access the TV shows JSON, it's going to return a promise, right? And let's see how this works. Save. Okay, so that's our common, our HTTP common file that we added in here, okay? I'm waiting. Let me know when you're with me. If you're with me, guys, I can move on. I don't want to move on if I've lost you. Are you with me, the people online? Check mark if you're with me, X if you're not. Yeah, so I pressed lowercase h and I made a comma here. Okay, I got some people here that are telling me they're ready to go online. Kyle, you good? So I see Kyle didn't put up his a check mark where, oh, okay, thank you very much, Kyle. Excellent. All right, so now that we've done this, that we've got this little thing here, the next step is to include our header here, this common HTTP. I want to include it inside of my my TV shows up here. So this up here is, again, a bit of overhead. We told, kind of Axios what to do. We've loaded in our data, and now we're going to import our, actually, sorry, we need to make our service now. I didn't make my service yet. First, I made my, in my services, that's up here in services, I made this HTTP common module, and now I need to make my service. Let's make my service now. So new file, that'll be okay. And then I'll go through the details again with you one more time, and then we'll describe why I'm making the thing that I'm making. Why am I making this service? How come? Why? Right? So in the new services, I want to make a new file. I'm going to call this the TV show list data service. TV show list data service. So I know what it is. I'm being very descriptive here. And it's got to be a TSX file. So again, just like before, I'm going to have to import some stuff. Here's the first thing I'm going to import. Import HTTP from ... or actually it's from HTTP common is what it is, HTTP common. Right, and I think it's in the same module. Did I not export it properly? No, it's right here. /HTTP common. Why does it say that? HTTP common or, but where is it? So it's actually /. So /, here it is. You have to put / HTTP common. That'll do it. Okay. Sorry, it's looking at the same. I'm being relative things. So that's how it works. Next, we need to add in that data. So I'm going to say import our TV show, right? Our TV show from models TV show. That has to happen. Okay. And then when we describe our data service, now this is where, we want to think about using two things. We can make it a function or we can make it a class, right? I'm going to make it a function just like normal because we're using functional programming. So I'm going to say function. We'll call this for now, let's try to see if this works. This is going to be the TV show list data service, right? And then we're going to export defaults. This TV show list data service. Okay, we're going to export default that. Let's see if it works. Okay. And I'm going to have several functions in here to do things. The one that I really want right now is I want to do two things. I want to be able to read one, and I want to be able to read all. Okay. So there's going to be two little functions that do this for me. So I want to make a function. Now, here's something that I want to think about, right? If I want to be able to access, if I made it a function, I'm going to try it like this for you. So I'm going to talk about why classes could be good here. Okay. If I made another function in here, okay, if I made a new function and I call this function something like read all, right? Then, then the read all function, if I made something like that, would be something like this. I want it to return, here's what I want it to return, HTTP, I'm finally using my HTTP module, .get, and I want to get an array of type TV show. Damn it. TV show. It's auto completing. Sorry. TV show. Okay, that's what I want. I want to get an array of type TV show. And what do I want to create? Right. So this is the almost like the URL that I want to use. So I want to get the TV show, right? And I could put in there any kind of URL or any kind of information I want. What if I just put in something like this? I want to just get the TV show. Okay, so I'm not actually adding to my URL. I'm just getting it from there. That's what I'm doing. Okay. Yay. And if I was to do this and it says, well, this is what I want to do, how come this is giving me issues? It says, well, expected 1 to 2 arguments, but got 0. We're going to pass in an empty argument. Right? So what is this argument? Remember this first argument? It's a URL. We've already given it the URL, right? The URL is here, right? Inside of our common. Our common URL is this one. This is the base URL. Do I want to add to the URL here? No. So that's why we're nothing. We're not adding anything in here. So it's empty, right? If I wanted to change this later on, we're going to modify this for an API. For now, we just want to read from here, okay? So back into my services for a second. So this is what this is going to do. So question is, if I imported it, can I use the read all method? think about this. Can I use the read all method from this, right? And all I want to do is be able to read everything. I want to read all the data from my file. That's all I want to do, okay? So, how does this work? So if I export it, if this is my little service, and by the way, here's some stuff that I'm going to put in the future. I'm going to have maybe a function called create, right? I need a function called create. This is my function called, this is my read, right? Then I want an update function, right? And then I want a delete function. I want to create, read, update, delete. I want to be able to have all of my data. So for now, let's just call this function read. Just let's call this function read, because all we're going to redo is read, right? So I can have this function. Okay, cool. So that's what I want. I only have my read function that I made. Is this function available outside of this TV show list data service? What do you think? Not yet. So let's do that inside of my TV shows component inside of views TV show list. So there's now back to my TV show list. All right. So in my TV shows list, I know this is like a bit of setup. Please bear with me, and then I'll talk about all the linkages afterwards. Okay. So for this one, so you can understand how this all works if we get this done. So here, right, if you think about it, what we're doing is I want to import. Here's my import. I want to import my TV show list data service. TV show list data service. There it is. Comes up, right? That's my TV show list data service. Okay. I've got my TV show. I got React. I've got pretty much everything I need. And now what I want to do is I want to read all of my TV shows, right? So I want a little function inside of this function, right? Down in here. The first thing I want to do, here's my little function. And inside this function, I want to read my TV shows. That's what I want to be able to do, right? So a function called read TV shows. Okay. So how does this function work? I want to go to my contact list or my TV show list data service. And I want to go dot read. That's what I want to do. But my friends, can I do this? Right? Can I do the read function? It says not. It says that TV show list data service, right, does not exist on any type. So if I go I can't see it at all. TV show list read does not exist. How come? It's functional programming, remember? So if I go back to my service, right, and if I go back to my TV show list, am I exporting this or using this somehow? Is there an export function that I can use up here? Can I do something like export function? Can I do that? No, it doesn't allow me to do this. Function read is actually trapped inside of my function, this function right here, right? There is no way to get it out, right? And this is where you can interchange between functions and classes when you need to. Remember we talked about classes and functions. We're using functional programming for the most part. This is a great place where you can use classes. And then we talk about how this looks. Okay, so please be aware of that. That's why I'm using it right now, to solve that problem, not because I don't want to use functions. It's just you have to use everything in its proper place. So here, let's go back to my TV show data service for a second, and let's change this function to a class. So the class is called TV show data service. That's what it's called, okay? And we can't put this, it's not a function like this. So we have to take away those things here. And classes don't have functions. They just have the name of the function that they want, like this, right? We could also make this function public, right? So now we can say that the function read is public. That's part of my class. The only changes we have to make down to the class is at the bottom of the class, right? Where we say export default. We can't do just this. We have to instantiate a new object of that. So we're going to say, when we go here, I want to make a new TV show list data service whenever I access it, a new object. Okay. what that does is it instantiates an object of type TV show data service, and then I can access my public read function. This is one way of doing it. The other way to do it is if I made my read function public static. Okay, and so that means it would look like something like this: public static read, and then I don't have to export a new object of type TV show list data service. But for now, let's just keep it like this. And I'll talk about the differences, so I don't want to confuse you any more than you're already confused. Okay, so this is the new form. Let's go back to my my TV show list here. And now you can see it computes. It doesn't give me an error anymore, right? Because TV show list, because read is a public function, I can do it, I can read it. And because I can read it, guess what I can do? I can use it as a promise. I'm going to go over this in a second, then we'll take a short break. Okay. I can use this thing as a promise, right? So what that means is when I'm reading everything here, reading everything, then what I can do is I can say, okay, so when I'm done reading, I want to do a then, right? When I'm done reading, I want to take the response, whatever that is, of type any, right? And I want to create a little callback function here that's going to do some stuff. What I want to do is I want to, for now, do a console log, right? That's what I want to do, console log. And I want to take that response that I got, and I want to take the data itself, the data that's inside of the response itself. That data is what I want to output. If there's a problem reading, then I want to catch that issue, right? And I want to say, please output the error to my console. Okay. Now you're going to be like, holy crap, all this for reading a file? But here's the beautiful thing, guys. If we get this done, we have the same format that I'm going to use. If Rich gave us his API for .NET, I could read Rich's API too with the same format, okay, or someone else. So that's a really awesome thing to do. Now, yes, we've made a little module, but we want to have some kind of output. And for now, all I want to do is have a div tag that actually outputs our TV shows. So what I'm going to do is down in here under the function, this is our little function read TV shows, right? And underneath this function, I'm going to have a little return statement, just like normal. For now, all I want to do to test this out is have a div tag in here, and that's it. It's just a placeholder. I want you to think of it like this, okay? I've just got a placeholder, and this placeholder is going to output a little TV show list function. Now, the read TV shows will never be activated, right? Because read TV shows is a function that's got to trigger somehow, right? So what we need to do is use something like use effect to read the TV shows for the first time. That's what I want to be able to do. Okay, so that means that back to here, right? Underneath this const, I want to use something called use effect, and I want to say something like read TV shows for the first time. And now we have a mechanism, we can do some testing. Now this may not work for the first time, but don't worry, because we're going to figure it out. Okay, that is our read TV shows or TV show list function. Now let's go back and explain. I'm going to explain everything from the beginning, just one more time, okay? Before I actually activate it all right? And then we'll take, if we have time, we'll take a short break. I don't know if I'll have time. I've made 6 new files, or 6 changes to my document here this time around at once, but I couldn't help it. Okay, I couldn't help it because one thing required another thing. Okay, let's go back. So for me to have my TV show list component, which is going to output my TV show list in some page that we're going to make. We haven't made this page yet. Okay, I need to import React, use effect, and use state. That is my first line, right? Next, I need a TV show list data service, because the data service is going to give me functions like read, create, update, and delete, so I can use the Axios API in its proper form. If you think about what TV show list data service is, it is a wrapper for the Axios, for Axios itself, right? So if I go there, go to definition, to TV show date list data service, right? Then you can see that I use something called the HTTP common for all of my modules, which means I'm going to pass in whatever my endpoint is from my API to read my data. So http.get array TV show, I'm going to read it from whatever my URL is. In this case, my URL is, if I go back to HTTP common, so if I go there, go to definition. Oop, that's the wrong one. I want to go to definition for HTTP, go to definition. It's here where I first create my an Axios, I kind of create an instance of the Axios API itself. That's what this does. So Axios creates an instance, right, of Axios. And it actually says that Axios instance. If I have an Axios instance, then I can use promises around everything that it returns. It returns an Axios instance. Okay, that's what it does. Now, this is assuming that we've done everything correctly. That's what we've done. Now, we don't know if this is good or not, and we'll see if we're good or not. Okay. So let's backtrack. So then, going back to our dependencies, our TV show list requires a data service, which we defined, right? And it also needs something like what a TV show looks like. A TV show has two parts, TV shows and set TV shows. Right now, we're not using this state variable. We're just setting it up for future use. Use effect, remember what use effect hook does? It waits for this component to be loaded, and then it triggers something. I'm triggering the read TV shows function that's right here, okay? The read TV shows function uses the data service to read from the file, and then it's going to output that file to the console. Okay, that's what it's doing. I need this part because I want to make it so that I can stick this on any page that I want. Okay, that's what I want to be able to do. I want to stick it onto a page or whatever, right? I don't have a page called contact list yet. I don't have a link for it, nothing. So I want to just test to see, can I read my data? That's all I want to do, right? If I can read my data, then the next part is okay. Let's see if I can do this. If not, we'll have an error and we'll have to fix it. Save. Let's go back to actually entering it into our app.tsx. How does this work now? How do I incorporate my new little component in my app.tsx? Well, we have to think about where that will come in. So here in my components, I have a home, about, project, services, and maybe I want some kind of TV show list here too. So let's put that into the path. I'm going to grab this little route, and I'm going to put a new route inside my routes here, and it's going to be, the new route is going to be TV shows dash list. That's going to be the new route that I'm making. Okay, I'm creating a new route, and it's going to be TV shows, right? So it's going to be TV show list. And what it does is it imports my TV shows list component here, okay? Now, again, I don't like where this is going, right? I don't like where the TV show component is. It's before Bootstrap. I want it to be above my styles and fonts. So down in here, I'm going to make another area that this is going to be called TV show list components. This is where this is going to go. I'm going to take this TV show list component, which is the first one, and it's going to go in here. I'm just organizing my code a little bit. Okay, that's all I'm doing. I don't have to do this, by the way, but I'm doing it because I want to be very organized. Okay, if everything is working, I've modified or added 7 files, right? And the only thing I added in here is a TV shows list link. So when I go to the TV shows link, it's going to create my TV shows element, and it's going to inject it right in here underneath my nav bar. So between my header and my footer, it's going to inject nothing, because guess what my TV shows list has? A div tag. That's all I have right now. So it's going to inject an empty div tag in there for now, okay? And hopefully it's not going to give me an error, and it's going to read my code. It's going to read my data. Let's see if it actually does this. And if it doesn't, we can troubleshoot why not after the break. So again, I'm going to go back to my page. Here's my page. And if I type at the top here, now I have a new list. I don't have a link for this yet, but if I go something like TV shows -list, if I did everything properly, it should take me to this empty page here, right? And if I look at the Control-Shift-J and look at my console, then I should be able to get my data. Now, here's what it says. It says, failed to load resource. This is a beautiful thing. Take a look at this. It says, here's my Axios error. It says error bad request, okay? It's failed to load this, data, TV shows, JSON. And if I look there, it shows me that I can't get data, TV shows, JSON out. See that? Data, TV shows, JSON. It can't find that, right? If I can't find it here, right, then I won't be able to find it anywhere else. That's the first thing. We have to be able to load this part. It tells me where I'm looking, TV shows.json. So let's take a look and see if I made a mistake, right? So back to this. So I went to source and then data and then TV shows.json. So this is what we should be seeing right here, this stuff, right? TV shows.json under my data folder. But it's also inside my SRC folder. And the way I got that was it actually worked. Axios worked because it did its job, right? It said that we had a problem. It's a beautiful thing. It says, hey, you guys have a problem. You're trying to get some data from somewhere and I can't get that data. So let's go into my services and HTTP comment and take a look at this. / data TV shows.json. That's what it's looking at. And it's trying to go to here and look in here. That's what its base URL is looking at. Okay. So it can't find this file. It says 404 not found. So now the question is, should this data folder be here? Or should this data folder be here in our public area? Like how far up did we go? Right? Because remember, the way this thing is structured is if I want to find a file that's here, if I go to index.html, this connects everything. This connects everything right here, right? So where should this data be? Maybe in my public folder, right? Because if you think about it, if I want to go into my public folder will have my data right now, and that's where it's going to look, right? Are you guys okay? Is it cold in here? So let's try that out. Let's make a copy of it. I'll make a new folder right here inside of my public folder called data, right? And I'll just copy for now. I'll just copy the stuff that I got in my SRC folder here. I'm going to copy this file. So here's copy, and I'll put it inside of my data folder here. Paste. Let's see if this is the problem. Because is it a routing issue? What is it? And then let's check it again. So go back to here. And let's refresh. And look at this. I got all my data, right? Why? Because remember what's happening, my friends, right? I'm trying to get data after the fact. Data doesn't exist. Remember my SRC folder and my other folder, it's gonna create a distribution folder, and my distribution folder is going to need the data folder at the end somehow. Okay, so what I've done is I've bypassed all that and it reads the data. Look, guys, this is a beautiful thing. If I can read this data in an array, I have all the data that I want. That means that, and did you guys get this, by the way? Are you guys with me? Did you get the data? No. What? Okay, how about you? Did you get the data? How about the people online? Did you get the data? Because if you can't get the data, you can't continue. How are we doing? You get it twice. That's good. There's a reason why we're getting it twice too, by the way, right? Awesome. If you can get it twice like this, that's awesome. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about how to display the data in our page. First, we need to get the data, and then we need to display the data. For now, I'm going to put this up on GitHub. And by the way, now that we know where we need to put the data, we can get rid of this data folder right here. Delete. Okay. Awesome. Let's put it up on GitHub. And then we'll take a short break. We'll say added Axios. Actually, we'll say I added TV show data. Here we go. Get push. That'll be good enough. All right, awesome. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll actually format this data so that it appears inside of our page.